as you guys can guess, today we're going to be working on the exhaust on my 99 Jeep Cherokee XJ. Today we're going to be installing a full catback exhaust, which includes a new tailpipe and a performance Dynamax muffler. Now the exhaust situation on the Jeep right now is pretty cobbled together. Things were rusting out over time. I've just been kind of band-aiding and putting it off. Well, I put it off for too long, and today we're going to tackle it and fix it the right way. I'm excited to get started on this Jeep Cherokee again. I haven't wrenched on it all year, other than just doing normal maintenance. So stay tuned. We're going to replace the old exhaust with the new one and do it properly. My name's Austin, and welcome to the Out Jeeping YouTube channel. Let's get started. Alright, so taking a look at the parts that we're going to be replacing on the Jeep today. This is pretty much a full catback exhaust. We got our muffler and we got our tailpipe, and that's basically everything after the catalytic converter, meaning catback exhaust. So in searching for a catback exhaust for this Jeep, I really wanted to keep the cost around a couple $100. Didn't want to go full out for a $600 kit for basically just a muffler and tailpipe. And it was kind of hard to find stainless exhaust. That's really what I was going for, especially with this Jeep being a daily driver, living in the Rust Belt. It's going to get exposed to all that salt, and if you just have a normal aluminized mild steel pipe, that's going to be rotted out in a couple of years. So replacement tailpipes, there's actually not a whole lot of companies that make them. There's Walker out there, but everything they do is aluminized, and I've run their stuff in the past, and I'm not a fan of them because they just rust out in a couple of years. Although they are affordable if you're looking to sell a Jeep or just put the exhaust back together and get rid of it quick. Not for the long term. That's probably an option to do because everything does fit pretty good. But I wanted something that lasts a lot longer, so I wanted to look for stainless. That's what we got right here for this exhaust pipe. And this one right here ran me around $100 off of eBay. The company is Northeastern Exhaust, and this is 409 stainless, so this is going to last a lot longer than your aluminized mild steel would. Now it's not the top of the line of 304, but it's still going to definitely help. This is what most of your new vehicles have for exhaust. They have 409 stainless. It's still magnetic, but it is a type of stainless steel that's going to last a lot longer. This is all factory size 2 1/4 inch, so we're not going to really beef it up to 2 1/2. There are a couple kits out there you can get for 2 1/2, but I wanted something that's going to fit pretty much like factory fit. Now moving over to the muffler, I really wanted to get a stainless steel muffler because I don't want to keep replacing these every 5 or 6 years or so, but I really couldn't settle on something that I wanted. Dynamax unfortunately doesn't make the correct setup for a stainless steel muffler for a 2 1/4 inch inlet and outlet, having it enter through the middle and offset on the exit. So I settled on getting their super turbo exhaust. This part number on here is 17747, and this right here they actually do make in a kit with a tailpipe. I think the later year XJs, they run around $220 on Amazon, and the earlier ones around $170, just different tailpipe configuration. But I just bought the muffler alone for roughly around $75, which isn't bad, and a stainless steel tailpipe for $100, so I'm already saving some money there. I did purchase some other odds and ends like clamps and a new exhaust tip, as you can see, just for a little bit extra, but it's nothing necessary to get this job done. Which brings us to our next thing, is this exhaust tip right here. This is just a simple 304 stainless thing I got off eBay. I think it's a better appearance-wise than the factory just downturn exhaust right at the end. I ran this exact one on my silver Jeep, if you guys recall from the past, and I just like the look of it. And it opens up to roughly 3 inch. This is just going to get clamped onto the end of there. We're going to have to cut off the tip on this existing pipe. I should also mention that this tailpipe right here actually did come with a new rubber isolator for your exhaust hanger and a new U-bolt, so we'll use that for our exhaust hangers going into this. And right here I actually do have a factory exhaust hanger for right over here, right after the muffler where it's going to get installed onto the Jeep. I actually have it removed because the original exhaust hanger coming off of the other side of the isolator that's welded to the tailpipe actually broke a long time ago, so I just took this off here so it doesn't rust or corrode anymore. But we're going to be utilizing this back again today and putting this back on. Now a couple other items that are still going to get delivered hopefully in an hour by Amazon. I got some stainless steel band clamps, and that's going to clamp our muffler to our catalytic converter and the other side of the muffler to our tailpipe. So those are lap joint band clamps because everything here is going to be pretty much clamped together Everything's going to slide into one another. You got 2¼ inch exhaust OD that's going to slide into 2¼ inch inner diameter inlet and outlet on this muffler right here. So everything's going to kind of slide in, and then we can adjust it on whatever angles we want and just clamp it down. Now, I've used these stainless steel band clamps a lot in the past, and I really like it over the U-bolt style right here. The reason why is it clamps it uniformly, and if you ever want to remove the exhaust or possibly swap out a muffler if you don't like it, you can still utilize the pipes going into it, because once you really use these U-bolt clamps, they crimp the pipe, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to get them off. You might have to do some cutting and things like that, and it will never really be the same. But overall, this should be a fairly simple install. This muffler is around 20 inches, so that's pretty much what the factory muffler was. So we shouldn't have to have any extension pipes or anything like that. But if we will, I do have some extra piping, but I think we should be pretty much ready to go on that. So let's go over to the Jeep and take a look at our current exhaust situation and see how cobbled it is together. Then after that, we're going to start taking that off and then installing our new stuff. Alright, so taking a look at existing, what we really have underneath here. As you can see, we have a thrush welded muffler on here. And the reason why I put this on here was I had another family member driving this Jeep at the time, and the old muffler rotted out, so we needed something quick to kind of throw on here. This was in stock at the auto parts store locally, and it was about half the price of a normal factory replacement. And I gotta say, after 5 or 6 years or so of having this on here, it's still actually in great shape, other than the ends where it connects to the pipe. I believe they put some sort of aluminized coating on here, and it's actually still holding up pretty good. For living in the Rust Belt, Wisconsin, everything else gets pretty rusty. I do, however, it looks like have a pinhole leak right here, so it's a good thing that we're replacing this, because this is starting to rust out. You can see it's a little bit wet from running it before, so a lot of that condensation coming out of the exhaust likes to leak out of these holes. But you'll notice that it is fairly close to the drive shaft. That's because the ones they have in stock, the inlet on them is actually offset, and they have a centered outlet, so it's actually pushing it closer to the drive shaft. So I do have it on a slight angle, and with the lift kit it helps a little bit, and having this smaller diameter drive shaft right here. So I don't have any contact right now, but if I had the old drive shaft with no lift on some big bumps, it might contact it a little bit. So not ideal setup, but it's what I had working for a couple of years. Now moving to the back of the muffler, obviously this is a lot shorter than the 20-inch factory muffler, so you're going to have to make up with that distance. So what I did over here is add a 2¼ inch extension pipe, just clamped it into here, and then clamped it into the existing tailpipe. And as you can see, the Wisconsin winters really took a toll on this mild steel, and probably if I tap it with a hammer, this U-bolt will probably just break apart, and then the whole thing will probably have a huge exhaust leak. But overall, the original factory exhaust hanger on the tailpipe that normally goes right here has rotted out, and I just replaced it with a universal one and just kind of bolted it up to the floor. I believe this is their second or third one, because after a year and a half or so, they all seem to kind of break, and I'm just kind of band-aiding and replacing them, or replacing a clamp that's rusted out. So now it's at the point where everything's too rusty and just kind of all needs to be replaced. Now moving towards the end of the exhaust by the tailpipe here, I don't have the original factory exhaust hanger over here as well. I just have a universal one. It's actually working pretty good, but I had to adjust it so that way it's pulling the exhaust away from that drive shaft, and with doing that on some big bumps, you'll hear that hitting the leaf spring, so that's not ideal right there. Right now, in the current state, it's all pretty much rotted out here where the hitch was bolted to, and that's where your factory exhaust hanger was. So I can't replace that today. I eventually want to repair that and put some rear frame stiffeners back here, and possibly put a hitch back on. There was a hitch on here that all rotted out, so I took that off years ago, but right now we're going to utilize this aftermarket exhaust hanger right here, and that should work just fine. That one's actually still in good shape and not rotted out. So I'm going to get the Jeep started up, and we're going to see what the exhaust sounds like with a thrush welded muffler with the catalytic converter. It's not too bad, but we're going to be replacing it with something different today, because I want to change the tone a little bit. Instead of having that driving drone that I'm kind of getting bored of, I want something a little bit different, something hopefully a little bit more aggressive or throaty. Alright, so I won't lie, I forgot to press the record button on that last scene, so I'm going to go over it with you quickly. So we're back underneath the Jeep right here, and we're getting ready to take this off. And for me, I don't need to jack up the rear vehicle since I got a lift and larger tires. I got plenty of room to work, but if you got factory suspension, factory tires, or if you're a bigger guy, no one's judging, you can always lift up the rear end. But for me, we're going to keep it right where it is right now. So the plan of attack on removing this is I want to remove it all in one piece, meaning the muffler and the tailpipe all in one section. That way we don't have to deal with all the rusted clamps and stuff like that. We still should be able to kind of weave it out of here. So we're going to start over here with the connection coming out of the catalytic converter. That's what I already actually started on. I got a clamp right here, and I was actually able to take it off with the impact without any problems. Since I've actually replaced this one twice now, that's not the original one when I installed the muffler, because as you can see, the inlet that's coming out of the muffler is a lot shorter than what it used to be. That's just because it rotted out. It used to come all the way to here, so there's not much really holding that on, and I had to replace the clamp when I did it that way. But I believe this one came off a lot better because I did use some anti-seize on the threads, even though there really doesn't look like it, probably burned up, but it actually came off with ease. So now that we got that off, as you can see, it is pretty free, and all we have to really do is kind of push it that way, and it's pretty much just hung up on the exhaust hangers right now. So we're going to go over there, take those off, and then we should be able to kind of scooch this out of here and then kind of weave it back out over the axle. It's most likely going to have to come out the front, as this muffler is not going to be able to fit over that axle. So let's move over to the exhaust hangers next, undo them, and then we should be able to remove this. Alright, so onto the back by the tailpipe, we have another U-bolt holding on this exhaust hanger. That's pretty much how the factory one is too. If you have an earlier XJ, you're going to have a rod that comes off it into a rubber isolator, so you're just going to want to pop that off of there. But these nuts on this U-bolt are going to be a 9/16. Let's see if they come off. A little stuck with that impact. We're going to try the big one, and if they don't spin off, it's going to break off with that. Whew. There we go. Number 2. And that one snapped. Makes it easier. And then we got a broken U-bolt. So now we just got that one other hanger. Let's move to that and remove that one as well. And then for this exhaust hanger that's right up to the muffler, normally it would just be going up into an isolator, but I have this universal one with another U-bolt, so we're going to undo that one as well. And keep in mind, your exhaust is probably going to fall down, so just have something to hold it up. You can always put a jack stand there as well. There we go. So now I'm going to shimmy the exhaust, push it back so it gets out of the catalytic converter. Do a little twisting. Get your foot in there. There we go. We are free. So now I'm just going to fish this out of here, kind of twist it, rotate it around the axle, and pull it forward. Alright, so now that we got the old exhaust out, one thing we got to do, start it up, see what it sounds like. I don't make the rules, but hey, we got to do it. Alright, so a couple things I'm going to do before I start installing the new exhaust. One of them is installing the original factory exhaust hanger, which I already taken care of off camera. Just had to clean up the threads because they got a little bit rusty on those bolts, then pop that in with some new bolts. Next thing I'm going to do is going to clean up the end of the exhaust pipe right here coming out of the catalytic converter. It is a little bit rusty, but it's nothing structurally bad. This is, I believe, stainless exhaust, and it's lasted over 300,000 miles, and all it has to show really is just surface rust. So I'm just going to clean it off with the wire wheels, that way everything kind of slides in nicely. Alright, so with the old exhaust off, we have it side by side with the new one, and you pretty much see the setup we're going for and how it's going to be replacing here. But just starting off with the old exhaust, as you can see, it's pretty rotted around here where we have the extension pipe from the old muffler. But this is the original tailpipe that's on this Jeep, and it's outlasted the aluminized pipe right here, and this is probably the second or third muffler that's on this Jeep for its entire lifetime, and this pipe right here has definitely outlasted that aluminized stuff, because I believe this is some sort of stainless. It's just surface rust on it, a little bit pitted, but there's absolutely no holes. Unfortunately, the hanger rusted off, so that's probably mild steel that was on there. Now looking over at our new exhaust, our band clamps finally came in. So this is a 2 1/4 inch band clamp lap joint. So right here, this is going to work perfect where our tailpipe slides into the muffler. So we're going to have that connection here, and I'm going to use the same one over here for this tailpipe. And what I'm going to do is actually lop off the end over here, and I don't need this exhaust hanger for the setup I'm doing, and so I'm just basically going to cut it right here, right before this hanger, and then this is going to slide out. And since the tailpipe kind of goes on an angle a little bit, this is going to come straight out, and it should clear no problem coming straight out. And I'm going to be utilizing one of these U-bolt clamps right here for the exhaust hanger that's going to mount right there for the rear, and then the exhaust hanger over here is going to utilize the factory exhaust hanger going into that rubber isolator. Then on the front, one of the lap joint band clamps did not show up, so I'm just going to utilize another U-bolt clamp style to bolt it over onto the catalytic converter side. Then whatever that one shows up, I can easily swap it out, but for today, that's going to work just fine. Now before we get this all installed, I'm going to actually cut off the end of the tailpipe right here, because it's going to be a lot easier with it not in the vehicle. And then I should be able to slip this on there once it's all onto the vehicle side. Alright, so now we're ready to start installing the exhaust. I'm going to start with the new muffler and slide it onto the end pipe over here. One thing I did with a Sharpie Quick is with all the connections, I just marked roughly 2 inches. That's the minimum overlap I want to get with these connections, so that way it creates a nice tight seal. If we have some extra length, we can drive the pipe a little bit further into the connections to give us a little bit more wiggle room. But we're going to start off with that and see how it works. So for the muffler orientation, you want to make sure that the center is your inlet and the offset is your outlet. The offset, you want to offset towards the drive shaft or towards the center of the Jeep. It slides on nicely since we wire wheeled that. And I'm just going to hold it right there, and we're going to get the tailpipe into place, and then we're going to start slowly kind of tightening things up together, but for right now we're going to leave everything loose. Now for a tailpipe, I'm going to start from the front, weave it in over the axle and kind of give it a twist. And then I'm going to feed it into the end of the muffler. And once I got it in a little bit, I'm going to feed the hanger up into the rubber isolator. Alright, and that's going to basically hold it while we shimmy everything around. Orientate the muffler so it's nice and level. That's actually perfect right there. Now I'm going to go check in the back, make sure the tailpipe's coming out in the correct spot. Alright, so looking at the tailpipe, it is a little bit close to the leaf spring, so I'm going to see with this exhaust hanger, that's actually going to hold it directly where we want, and then our tailpipe's going to fit right here, no problem. Now I'm just going to test fit our exhaust tip. I don't want it sticking out too much. Right there is my overlap mark, so I don't want to go any less than that. With the exhaust clamp tight, this is going to be tight right there. I think that's going to be a nice clean look. Out of the way the leaf spring, and it's not touching the heat shield for the gas tank, so I think we're good on clearance. So now I'm going to take a new U-bolt clamp, and this is where we're going to attach our rear exhaust hanger. Apparently there's a soccer game in the background. And I'm just going to have to angle this slightly that way, just so it doesn't hit the leaf spring. And you guys already know what's coming. We're gonna get some anti-seize on these threads. Alright, so I got that roughly where I want. I'm going to start off with just tightening up a little bit. Nothing crazy tight in case we still need to adjust it. I think right there is good for now. Now I'm going to set the clamps on the other connections and we'll tighten those up and then we'll finish up with the exhaust tip. Alright, so do a once over once again. Make sure you have your muffler and tailpipe in where you want it to. Now we're starting to clamp stuff down. So I'm going to use this lap joint clamp right here. Slides over just like that, and it's going to tighten up right there and make a nice sealed connection without crimping the pipe. That's the big thing. So they got these semicircle angle pieces right here. They're going to go on either side, so we're going to feed one bolt through here, then feed it through one side of the clamp, and then we got to put our aluminum spacer inside the middle. That's going to go through the other side of the band clamp, and then we have another semicircle piece that's going to go in the back. Alright, so got that all started on the threads. I'm going to take up the slack a little bit and then I'm going to rotate it up so the bolts are on the top side just to give it a little bit cleaner look. And these bolts look to be 9/16. Make sure that's all the way set inside that lap joint, and then we're just going to snug this up. What I really like about these band clamps is that they help align the two pipes together that you're connecting perfectly on its central axis, compared to just a U-bolt style clamp. Since there's a little bit of play once you're sliding them in, once you clamp that down, it just kind of, you know, pinches it wherever position it is, doesn't kind of correct it into a smooth transition, but these band clamps really do. Alright, with that all tightened down, I'm going to move up to the next clamp. Now over on this clamp connection over here, I'm going to use a U-bolt style, just because the one didn't show up in the mail, and I ordered a special one over here instead of a lap joint, which would definitely work, but I actually have a downstream O2 sensor right on the other sides here, so that's not going to work. But I ordered a normal style band clamp that would just crimp on this pipe right here, and crimp it a lot more uniform than a U-bolt will. So once that arrives, I'll swap it out, but for now, this should work for now. I'm just not going to go crazy tight and crimping this down. And you may notice I got a jack stand under here. That's just to kind of keep the joint all the way up right here, because right now it's kind of a divot right where this joint is, since there is slop in the pipe. So once I clamp this down, I want to clamp it down in the position that it's in now, so that way it'll hold it, and that way it won't just clamp it when it's divoted down, because then it kind of looks like your exhaust is hanging a little bit. Alright, so that's pretty tight right there. It's actually starting to bevel out this clamp, probably because it's a cheapo one that came with the exhaust pipe. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Take off this jack stand. And that held that position nicely. Nice and tight, no movement. If there's a little bit of air leak, we can always tighten this down a little bit. Now let's move over to the exhaust tip. Alright, now I'm going to install our exhaust tip. I'm going to start off with the clamp. I already got that pre-assembled. I'm actually not going to be able to see that overlapping point, so I'm going to make another mark on where it's going to go so I can see where the end of the clamp is going to end up on the tailpipe. That way I'll know I have it seated where I want it. Line up our exhaust tip how we want it, and then we're going to snug it down. Alright, with that tightened up right here, I'm going to finalize it by tightening up this last clamp over here. As you recall, we just tightened it up a little bit, but now I'm going to fully make sure it's nice and tight, because this is its final resting place. I just clocked it a little bit over, so that way there's more of a gap right here, since it was kind of close. Now this should never contact that leaf spring right there. think right there is good. Don't want to crimp down on the pipe to restrict it at all, but I think that's it. Everything is pretty much done. That is nice and solid in there. Should wiggle a little bit on those isolators, but that's what you want it to do. Alright, so now that we got everything buttoned up, that's pretty much wrapping it up for this project. I'm going to start it up and we're going to see the sound test with the RPM and compare it to what it was before. Alright, so as you guys heard, it is a little bit quieter over that thrush welded muffler that we had on prior to this, but that's okay with me because this is a daily driver and I don't want to be totally obnoxious all the time with a loud exhaust that's droning, especially when you already have enough noises going on in the Jeep with rattling trim panels, wind noise, everything like that. So this is going to work for me for now. Obviously, if you remove your catalytic converter, it's going to be significantly louder and you're going to get that amplified a lot better. Who knows, might do that in the future, but for now, this is good for me. But now I got great peace of mind knowing that this is nicely done. It's not going to fall apart on me when it's negative 20 out in January. I should be good with this setup for a long time, for years to come. As always, I'm going to post links in the description below so you guys can follow along on if you want to purchase the same products or possibly alternatives. I'll put the full kit for the catback exhaust for the Dynamax that comes with the tailpipe together, so you're not purchasing from multiple locations if you don't feel like it. But the way I went, I got an upgraded stainless steel, well, for less than the price. But I'll put all the links down below so you guys can check that out as well. But with that, that's going to be a wrap for today's video. I hope you guys learned something if you're following along, or if you just want to hear the differences between the exhaust tones. So make sure to like and subscribe to the Outshipping YouTube channel if you like these kinds of videos, and I'll keep making them for you guys. If you have any questions or comments on how I installed anything or anything else Jeep related, make sure to post it below, and I'll be happy to get back. Other than that, I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.